And I decided to take the easy way out and go back to KSEA. And my first night on the air at KSEA, you know how sometimes you just get this feeling in your bones, and it was like, this was the wrong choice.
Mm-hmm.
This was the wrong choice. But they were so nice to me at KSEA.
And that's the voice of Emmy Award-winning writer, author, director, as well as radio personality Ken Levine. And last time we're talking about one of the reasons I got into radio, whom Ken met at K100.
So I got to follow the real Don Steele, who became good friends. We worked together at two different stations.
Wow.
So that was kind of cool. But the program director, Bill Watson, hated me. It was actually mutual, but a lot of tension there. I was not at all happy at K100. He made it pretty awful.
Now, did Drake Chanot own K100, or were they the consultants to the...
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Because I guess they were trying to recreate the 93 KHJ magic, but they weren't able to recreate the ratings that KHJ had, the from the worst to first in 60 days formula that Drake was a genius at, both in Los Angeles at KHJ and then 136 KGB San Diego.
Well, it was really KHJ lite. We didn't have jingles. We had these like whisper jingles, K100. And it was not a great signal at 100.3 on the dial in LA. Other places had much better signals. And it was kind of generic in a way. And yeah, it never really caught on, but there was no magic, no spark to it. It never felt like a happening station. A few years later, when I was on TenQ and we premiered, you just got the sense that this is a happening station. You know, that the music, that the jocks, that the presentation, that everything was in your face and really fun. Jimmy Fox did a fantastic job of creating excitement on the radio. And TenQ, to me, was like the last great top 40 station. And K100 was just very methodical, very clinical.
Mm. Now, TenQ, I remember hearing the early jingles. It sounded just like the KCBQ jingles in San Diego, KCBQ, TenQ. And it was really cool because I was like, that's a really cool jingle. Kind of has that 93 KHJ vibe to it, but it's different. What else was it about K100 besides the DJs? What was that secret sauce that really made it pop and really be different than the other stations? You said it was more, with K100 being clinical, what was it at TenQ that really was just the icing on the cake that made it the best?
I think, you'd have to talk to Jimmy Fox about this, but I think there was a sense of fun, that there was like a very infectious quality that TenQ had. It's like, these are disc jockeys that love what they're doing. They love the music. They're having fun. We used to do changeovers with the disc jockeys, and so there would be byplay between the disc jockeys. The music, I just remember our rotations were not super structured, that we had a certain amount of leeway. They did a really great job of research and giving us some really interesting things to play. We played a lot of new stuff. We kind of broke different acts. And KHJ, by that point, was sounding very safe. You know, they were very safe and very kind of corporate, and we were the new irreverent people in town.
Somebody told me that TenQ is the only top 40 station in town where you could hear the Ramones as well as other early new wave artists.
Yep. Yeah, we played the Ramones. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And the music was fun. You know, it was upbeat, and, you know, you're starting to get into the 80s techno music. Yeah, it was just like a good mix of music and irreverence. I mean, they just let me go crazy.
Now, tell us how you came up with the name Beaver Cleaver. Was it one that you selected, or was it a program director that selected it for you?
No, I selected it. It's when I went to WDRQ in Detroit. I had been Ken Stevens at K-Men, and what I wanted, since disc jockey names, especially back then, were all so generic. It was all Johnny Mitchell and Ed Mitchell and Mark Elliott and, you know, Jim Hudson and Joe Davis. And it's like all these forgettable names. And I wanted a name that was distinctive. I wanted a name that the minute you heard it the first time, your ears perked up. Like, who is this guy? And so I chose Beaver Cleaver. A, it was easy to say. B, there was the identification with the television show. Mm-hmm. And C, I was able to do a lot of double entendres with it, you know? It's like my first night was the grand opening of the Beaver, stuff like that. You know, people hear for the first time and they go, okay, this guy's different. You know, this guy's kind of interesting. So that's why I chose it. And I think part of my problem with Bill Watson, the program director of K-100, is it was my first day, and I was going to go on at 6 o'clock that night, and I'm sitting in Bill's office in the afternoon, like around 1 o'clock, and Eric Chase was on the air, and Eric Chase said, starting tonight, Beaver Cleaver. I wonder if Eddie Haskell, and Lumpy are going to come by to say hi. And Watson looks at the radio and he goes, what the fuck was he talking about?
Oh, no.
And I said, well, Beaver Cleaver, the TV show. He goes, what are you talking about? What TV show? I said, Leave It to Beaver. I said, you never heard of Leave It to Beaver? And he was, at the time, he was probably 45. Mm. He goes, no, there's a TV show? Yeah, there's a TV show. It's not on anymore. It was on in the 50s and early 60s called Leave It to Beaver. And the character's name was Beaver. Oh my God, and we're promoting the name and everything. What if we get sued? And I said, well, if you get sued, I'm sure we'll make some noise and, probably be a story on the network or the local news, TV, blah, blah, blah. And we can probably just turn it into a contest and I'll just change the name. Okay? It's clearly a made-up name anyway. Who cares? Mm-hmm. Oh, my God. I got to call Drake. So he calls Drake. Drake goes, yeah? And he goes, our new nighttime guy, Beaver Cleaver? Yeah. He goes, did you know there's a television show called Leave It to Beaver? And Drake goes, yeah, of course. And he goes, "Oh my God, well, what happens if we get sued?" Drake said, "That'd be the greatest thing that could ever happen to us because we'll promote it and we'll get on the news and we'll do a contest or something and just change his fucking name. What difference does it make?" But Watson held that against me as if I tried to trick him by using this obscure name, as if I was trying to trick him. Dickhead.
Now, after K100, you went to B100 San Diego, KFM, BFM San Diego, as they used to say for the legal ID in America's finest city. Tell us about how you got that gig, because it was one of San Diego's first, if not, I think it was their first Top 40 FM.
No, the first Top 40 FM was KSEA, which I had been on before K100. And then when I got fired from K100, I was kind of at a crossroads to decide, do I want to stay in LA and try to make it as a writer? And KSEA offered me my job back. And I knew I had to move out of my nice Westwood apartment because I wasn't making K100 money anymore. So I knew I'd have to move anyway. And I decided to take the easy way out and go back to KSEA. And my first night on the air at KSEA, you know how sometimes you just get this feeling in your bones, and it was like, this was the wrong choice.
Mm-hmm.
This was the wrong choice. But they were so nice to me at KSEA and all, and so I stayed at KSEA, and I would every weekend drive to LA and try to write scripts with my partner David Isaacs. And I thought, well, they're being so nice to me. I can't just quit after a couple of months. But my birthday was in February, and I thought, okay, if my birthday present, I'll quit, and it'll be 6 months. I will have given him 6 months, so that'll be okay. So then the December rating book came out, and the station got like a 3, and I got like an 8. And I was like, oh, shit. It's like I'm the only, everyone else was getting 3s and 2s and shit, and I got an 8. Like, oh, God, they're not going to let me go. But the program director called and said, there's a mandatory jock meeting at 4 o'clock. So we all show up, and this was December 18th. And he goes, well, the station has decided to change formats. We're going to go all gospel. He said, when? He looked at his watch. He went, 45 minutes. So we were all fired. And at the time, I was friends with Bobby Rich. I became friends with Bobby when he was on KHJ. And then he left to become the program director and evening jock of KFMB AM. So when we got fired, the first thing I did is I walked into the production room and I called Bobby. And I said, we've all been fired. The station is changing formats. There was a long pause on the phone, and Bobby said, okay, this is just between us. He said, our FM is going to go top 40 in March. And I'll hire you today to be my assistant program director, and you can do afternoons if you want. And I'll put you on salary now. And I said, Bobby, that's a fantastic offer. It's the best offer in radio I'd ever been given. I said, I'm going to LA to starve. I said, I've got to try being a TV writer. And we worked out a deal because I guess they had trade with PSA Airlines and the Travelator Motel. But I was able to do weekends at B100. Back in those days, catching a plane to San Diego was like catching a bus. You know, there were flights to San Diego every half hour. You would just park right in front of the terminal, and next flight's leaving in 11 minutes. Get on the plane and you're there. So I did that for like 2 years until TenQ started, and Jimmy Fox was doing like 9 to midnight on B100. And when he put the station together, he hired me to do Saturday nights. And by then, I had made it as a TV writer. In fact, by then I was the head writer of MASH. So I would do that, and then on Saturday nights, my alter ego, Beaver Cleaver, I would do 6 to 10 on TenQ.
That's great. And I remember you're talking about PSA Airlines. As late as 1979, you could get on the flight without even purchasing a ticket and purchase it mid-air, from what I understand.
Yeah, it was like catching a bus.
We're talking with radio personality, Emmy Award-winning writer, and author Ken Levine. By the way, check out his website at kenlevine.blogspot.com. That's kenlevine.blogspot.com, where you can hear his podcast, as well as read some great writings. And next time, Ken talks about, speaking of writing, how he got to write for MASH.